In a previous video, we found that this 1970 VW Bug had a bad camshaft. And that meant that the engine needed to come out, and it did. There it is, one of the halves, just getting inspected and cleaned up. Got some new rings for those pistons once we get those cleaned up. The heads are over here, just gonna lap the valves, and there's the old camshaft. The new one's going to be a 110. The crankshaft is in this bag, and dual carbs pulled out. There's some new bearings. We're going to go with the silver lines, but these are the ones we're going to put in, and we're looking forward to getting this engine put back together and running it with that 110 cam and seeing how she goes. But really, we just want to get it back together, period, because we miss driving it. We love driving these cars. I got my new pup there. What's going on, Maui? She loves driving these cars also. That's how I knew she was going to be a good dog for me. She'll jump right up into those, any one of these VWs and cruise right with you. Okay, we're at a place where we want to go ahead and get the crank back together. We didn't have it reground or anything. It all looked pretty good. We're just gonna put it back together how it was and roll with it. But we did take some very fine sandpaper and clean up this nose where the number 3 and 4 bearing is gonna go. So we're gonna do the old trick now where we go and heat up the timing gear and the distributor drive gear, and we're gonna get those on the crank and see if we can get this assembled today. A lot of this stuff goes on out in your shop, but for us, we had to bring it indoors because we don't have a hot plate, so we have to actually use our stove. But we got the number 3 bearing, okay, is gonna go on first. You notice that the dowel pin hole is skewed to one side right there. Well, that's the side that goes to the flywheel. So we'll go ahead and put that number 3 bearing on. All right, it looks hot enough. All right, now we're gonna drop the spacer on. And now the distributor drive gear. All right, back outside. The snap ring goes on after the distributor drive gear. I didn't film it because it took both of us. One of us had to spread it with these cheap set of snap ring pliers, and one of us tapped down on it. So, but that's the order of things. The next is the number 4 bearing to go right there. And once we get it together, we hope to drop it in the case half and also the cam, and rotate it and see if the cam stays in the case or walks out. Well, in this case, we prefer to have the distributor drive gear already in. So, you know, had it on number 1 on top dead center, dropped our dizzy. Now we're going to put the cam bearings in so that we can put the cam shaft on and see how it plays with the timing gear on the crank. All right, we got the cam mated up to it, and you know, the 2 timing dots there are lined up with the one on the cam. So let's get some movement going and see how it plays. Yeah. It's not walking. That looks like a winner to me. All right, we're feeling good about all of that. But what we already know is that the old oil pump is not gonna work because the bolt heads on this flat cam were hitting the back of the oil pump. So on the other cam, it was deep dished, and right here was a big scoop taken out of it, and the rivet heads came nowhere near the back of the oil pump. But these right here do hit the back of the oil pump, and we already know that. So that's where we're at now. We'll have to find a proper oil pump for this thing, and we'll move forward.
And just like that, we found one. Now, it wasn't just like that. We had to go to a friend's house and pick this one up. And we call him VW Jim. If I haven't mentioned him before, he's the local expert around this area. Over 40 years of working on these air-cooled VWs. It's actually what he does for a living, and he always helps us with guidance and parts for very good prices. And a lot of times he just says, here, man, take it. So not only is he a great VW mechanic, he's just a good dude. And he gave us this oil pump. So I'm not going to make this about oil pumps, but just real quickly, here's what I learned. If you line these back mating surfaces up, this is the one that was on the car, and the one on the right is the new one. If you line up those back mating surfaces, it won't stay. You could see that the body of this one protrudes deeper into the case, and so the cam is wanting to hit this. And this one here, that little bit of difference, we've already put it in the case, and you'll see it again when we actually install it. But the cam is not going to hit the back of this one. So we got lucky there.
So before we put this back together, I'd like to point out this 40 stamped right here with the 2 dots. So if you can see that line bore there on those main bearing journals, supposedly 20 thousandths at a time they get a line bored. So the first align bore, this would be a 20, second align bore is a 40. So if you were to read this number to me and those 2 dots, it would mean that this case has been align bored twice, 20 thousandths at a time. But if we took the measurement of these main bearing saddles and then we did the math on what they're supposed to be standard, and the difference came out to be 60 thousandths. So what we believe is that that case has actually been align bored a 3rd time, and it just didn't get stamped. So don't think you can rely on those stamps or the numbers. You really should take the measurement, and ultimately you'll know, because we found out when we got the new bearings. We had to get the oversized bearings, and they fit for the 60 over line bore. So anyway, just wanted to make a point of not trusting, you know, any of these numbers or stamps you see on the case. Always take your measurements. Something we learned. But one thing to notice is that this side of the case has 2 dowel pin holes. It is not to be used. From what I understand, this is an earlier case and they had those. But although this side has a dowel hole on it, notice that that bearing does not on this side. So if you were to put a dowel pin in there, when you went to drop that half of the case onto this half, that dowel pin would crush into that bearing. So it's worth observing, because I have seen a case that didn't have this extra dowel pin, so it wouldn't be an issue. But if you didn't know and you were relatively new to this game, you could easily say,
all right, that took two of us, but we dropped
pin
the
in
cam,
there,
and if you can see
it
that
onto your
dot
case
on the cam
you would
gear,
crush
you
that.
can't see the two on the timing gear because they're covered with oil right now, but that dot is in between the two dots on this gear.
Okay, so on the cam plug, this is the usual way to install it, okay, with the opening out. But you know what they say is, if you ever had enough thrust back and forth on this cam, that you would appreciate if this was flipped around that way, and it would give you more spare room. And also something about an automatic, this is the way the plug should go. But we're going to go with the standard installation of it and flip it around that way. Roll. Went ahead and got the oil pump installed after we brought the case halves together and just snugged up these nuts. Now we're going to go about torquing it down. We're going to follow the sequence of, and we're going to do it to 15 foot-pounds. All right, check the rotation. Check the rotation, go to 20 foot-pounds, check the rotation, and then to sounds good. I like that squish. Well, there it is. Everything's torqued down and the case is back together. You know, this is the first time we've split a case and got into the bottom end, and we always knew we would, not if but when. Turned out when was when that camshaft went kaput. So if you see anything we did terribly wrong, feel free to comment and let us know. We're still learning, but we feel pretty good about this bottom end rebuild. It's got the Empi 110 cam in there now. It's rotating really good, and we're gonna get on the top end. The top end is something we've done on a couple of engines already, so we feel good about that part. But we're moving forward. Gonna get the top end work done, and we'll get it bench started and break this cam in.
We're gonna have to wrap
Hopefully
it
that
up
noise is
and,
gone.
get back to it another day.
We will have learned a lesson about
A lot of work
identifying
coming
cam
up
noise.
at our regular job.
And not only that, so Sophie's gonna have to wait a little bit longer Remember, if this video helps you, to like and subscribe. If it didn't, then leave a comment and tell me what's up. But either way, thanks for hanging out with the Bombero bus, and we'll see you on the next one.